expressed during this program are not necessarily the views of the station, its staff, or management. Equal time will be given to people with opposing views.
Good morning, Muskegon. This is Ian Muskegon, and I'm Jim Riley, your host for this community conversation. Hey, I'm here this morning with my buddy and engineer, the ever-ticking Oscar Osbo. Morning, Oscar.
Morning.
Ever-ticking. And back again with us to help out in studio this morning is, past county commission candidate Mark Molitor, and engineer and manager, a businessman, and...
all-around good guy.
All-around good guy. Morning, Mark.
And how long is it going to take for the candidate commissioner thing to stop, so I can stop being reminded of that failure?
Well, good call. Well, I bring that up because I do think that as a candidate myself for county commission who was not successful in my
I came in
quest,
second.
and as did I got my money back, actually.
Yeah, got your $100 back.
Got the $100 back. But I do think that some folks may view people who lose elections as losers. I do not. I believe that people who stand tall and run, I think you can actually win by losing. At least you get your message out. People get to know who you are. And I'll say this, it is really unusual for someone to win a countywide office on the first run. As a matter of fact, it's unusual to win almost any race on the first time out. So much of that, and you and I haven't talked about what the future holds for you, but if you're interested in politics, you want to be running, even at the lowest levels, and I don't mean low in a negative sense, but running for school board, running for township
get
trustee.
Your name out there.
Yes, running for various offices and winning, because you learn the skills of being running a political race and ultimately maybe being a politician.
Well,
but I think it gives you credibility.
And I don't think it was all for nothing, because I guess I have heard that Commissioner Cross is stepping up his game slightly, so he's actually has a little bit of a voice now in the boardroom. So I think I might have put some due pressure on him.
I would agree. I have had some interaction with County Commissioner Ben Cross, and I'm seeing some things that I like. He seems to be, and others, but Ben seems to be one of the leaders in really encouraging the board to be more open and to make sure that they're not engaged in what they were convicted of last year, or at least what they settled for. It didn't go to court, but which was violations of the Freedom of Information Act and the Open Meetings Act.
Right.
So, yes, I think that's important when people like you stand tall and do run, and you are critical of your opponent. It does give them an opportunity to rethink how they've done things, and I would also hope it would give the media. Of course, we are a critical media here, but I would hope that the Muskegon Chronicle and any other medias out there would start being a little more critical. Certainly not bashing,
right?
But analyzing.
Constructive criticism is always good.
Absolutely, and exactly.
No need for personal attack.
And we're not going to do personal attacks, but in the 9 o'clock hour, we do have, I think, a really great guest, because, as you know, I have been comparing Muskegon County to the counties that surround us. And coming in the 9 o'clock hour, just after the 9 o'clock hour, will be Ottawa County Administrator Alan Vanderburgh. And he actually was scheduled a while back, and we had some little snafu there. So he will be in. And by the way, we are recording this show, so that don't call in. We'd love to have you call in. Normally, you can email us at ionmuskegon@gmail.com. But you can't call us.
Not today.
You can't get through. So
probably the only time we get some phone calls is right now.
Probably get calls. Well, Oscar, you said something, or you and I were talking.
Unless you have a time machine. Our
show, the video of our show, you are nice enough to video it for us, and it is on TV 38 and on Comcast Channel 397 on Monday nights from 8 to 9:30. And we didn't think about this, and I don't know if we've been able to fix it, but if you didn't know that it was a recording of a radio show, you would think it's live, and some people had been trying to call in and quite frustrated that they didn't get answers. So we're trying to fix that.
Accusing you of being a phone screener.
Well, we're a small town little radio show here, and we're trying to do our best, and we're trying to get better every time. So we don't mind criticism. As a matter of fact, we welcome it. And if you got good ideas, and actually this, the reason I'm talking about it is we got some comments on the ionmuskegon@gmail.com site. So anyway, until we get the Ottawa County Administrator here. As always, I like to talk about some of the items that have intrigued me over the last couple of weeks, and certainly you've got some, Mark. But a quote that I have read before, but I would like to remind you because I think it's going to be paramount in our discussion with Mr. Vanderburgh, and that is, quote, "We don't have $1 trillion debt because we haven't taxed enough. We have $1 trillion debt because we spend too much." And that's Ronald Reagan, way back, the amiable dunce, as the left likes to call him. And right now, the Tea Party and people, the conservatives and the libertarians, I certainly wouldn't say Republicans because not all Republicans believe this, but certainly a significant portion of America believes that we shouldn't be spending money we don't have. We shouldn't be borrowing money that there's a real question that we would ever be able to pay back. And we seem to be in the minority today. Certainly if you turn on the media, that kind of concept is not well received. And I've been on some of the websites on the left, and honestly, the Tea Party is being portrayed as homophobic, sexist.
Oh yeah, you guys. The farthest right as you can go. You guys are out there.
As evil as you can get, exactly. And
the Antichrist.
You mean it's not?
As we say goodbye to Oscar Osborne for our last show of the year. But exactly, Oscar, and that's the way it's being portrayed. And as Mr. Goebbels, who was Minister of Propaganda for Adolf Hitler's Nazi regime, said that if you repeat a lie often enough, it becomes the truth, or it becomes a fact. Yeah. And we are here to try to offset that. We are really interested in accountable government that isn't spending itself into bankruptcy, like we just saw happen not so long ago in Muskegon Heights school system, like we're seeing in Stockton, California, we're seeing in many other places. And of course, as you have brought up in your campaign, very frightening numbers that are showing up here in Muskegon County government. So
huge debt.
A huge debt. And one thing kind of coincidental, but an issue for me has always been, and I've been imploring the Muskegon Chronicle and M Live to help out in this, and who knows, maybe they'll get on board and get involved. But we need more information about those people who are running for office, and it wasn't that long ago. We just had a Michigan State Supreme Court justice resign because she was just about, and she's since been indicted for bank fraud and a variety of other misdeeds. Now, that information was out. It was pretty clear that she had done what she was accused of, but she won her election nonetheless back in November. And the media kept that information from us. We have a senator now, Bob Menendez. I believe he's from maybe New Mexico or maybe Arizona, but who now it turns out it has been accused of, and it looks like there may be some real substance there, accused of having sex with underage prostitutes. And that information was held up. So in the event that you have a U.S. senator who may be forced to resign, and I'm not suggesting that he did, but we need to know this information beforehand, and I really would hope that the education is the key. Right. And that's what we're trying to do here for our show. But the reason I mentioned that, and this probably has no interest to anybody listening except for maybe Honey Bunch and a few others, but on this day in history, February 10th, 1763, the Treaty of Paris ended. And I remember hating to have to memorize the dates and the Treaty of Paris and all that kind of stuff. So I don't blame anybody for not knowing that. But it ended the French and Indian War. Now, I would challenge you, go out and speak with any person 30 and under and ask them, do you know anything about the French and Indian War? I would suspect very few people do.
Well, I'm 46 and I don't know anything about it.
Okay, and it's an important.
How about you, Oscar? I don't either. You don't either. Yeah. So there's your survey.
Well, and it's an important war. We learned it when I was a kid, and at some point from
you
were
the time, much closer to that date than we are.
Significantly. That's a good one. But it was the treaty that in that war that was there was a treaty that ceded Canada to England. And ultimately made the bulk of Canada English-speaking and our closest and best ally in the world. But these are important things, and again, they don't teach them any longer. And I would just hope that we would have a little more effort to educate folks on a little bit of the history of the world, certainly history of our country, and certainly educate yourselves so that you know you've got the tools to analyze and to look at these candidates for office. We had these proposals, which, by the way, I think that they were fairly well covered in the media, thankfully.
Yes.
The bulk of which failed back in
the one thing
November.
I can't believe they don't do, like on MLive, is just post the link to the actual proposals so you can read them instead of just having a bunch of information about them and their opinion on them. Because they weren't that long. I mean, everyone thinks these proposals are 40 pages, and some were just one page. They were actually not well written, but pretty easy to read.
Well, those of you and those of us who were interested did our own homework, and anyway, that's the goal here. But a couple of other interesting things happened on this day in history. For those of you who used to be huge New York Times fans, in 1897, the New York Times began printing the quote, "all the news that's fit to print" on their front page. Now, sadly, because the New York Times has chosen to essentially become the public relations arm of the Democrat Party, and they've lost hundreds of thousands of subscribers and readers. All the news that's fit to print is really, sadly, a joke today. But here's something that caught me. On this day in 1967, long before you were born, or no, I
was born. I was actually
long before you were ignoring your history teachers. The 25th Amendment to the United States Constitution was ratified, and I bring this up because there's all sorts of folks that say, we need to restrict guns. Well, there is a way to overturn the Second Amendment if we're so inclined, or to amend that amendment. But of course, they don't want to do that. They want to stack the court with judges. But anyway, in 1967, the 25th Amendment of the United States Constitution was ratified, and that required the appointment of a vice president when that office became vacant, and then instituted new measures in the event of presidential disability. And, of course, that's a result of the assassination of John Kennedy. Well, the reason I bring that up is I would have thought when I saw this that was the most recent change to the Constitution, but there have been two since that. The 26th, and actually it might be even more than that, but anyway, the 26th and the 27th. But the 27th prevents laws affecting congressional salary from taking effect until the beginning of the next session of Congress. That was passed in 1992, and that was begun, initially proposed as a constitutional amendment. It wasn't ratified by all the states and all, in 1789. So our founding fathers said, hey, we got to stop these guys from giving themselves raises. What did they do? They didn't give themselves raises. They made automatic raises for the next Congress, and since 97% of all our congressmen and women are reelected, they got around this constitutional amendment. So
clever.
They can change it as they want. We can change it as we want. And sadly, most of the changes seem to be negative. But we got a break coming up, and we will be back.
Make a run for the border. Taco Bell is waiting to cook for you. Delicious tacos, nachos, chalupas, gorditas, quesadillas, or try their famous grilled stuffed burrito for only $1.99. Make it a combo for only $3.49. Their large variety includes specialties, combos, supreme salads, and kids' meals. Taco Bell, the best fast food north of the border. So walk in or drive up. Visit all of the Taco Bells in West Michigan. Open Sunday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. Taco Bell's open Fridays and Saturdays from 10 a.m. until 1 a.m.
$5,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the suspect or suspects responsible for the death of Alvaro Lora. Alvaro was 72 years old, was found by his daughter on April 27th inside his home in Muskegon, brutally stabbed and beaten to death. And still the homicide remains a mystery. Please help Alvaro's family for justice. Anyone with information is urged to contact the Muskegon Heights Police Department at 231-733-8900 or Silent Observer at 72 Crime.
Bad boys, what you want, what you want, what you gonna do when Sheriff John Brown come for you?
Call Bad Boys Bail Bonds, open 24/7, 365 days a year. Agents statewide and nationwide. We do 10% bonds for less. Call toll free 866-728-6600. 6400. And remember, if we can't get you out, you ain't getting out. Payment plans available. Call now, 866-728-6400. Classic Computer Sales and Service. They buy, sell, trade, repair, and upgrade. New custom-built computers, 3-year guarantee, excludes laptops. Or your computer tuned up with more memory, hard drive, or maybe a DVD burner installed for $49.95. Need cables, power supply, or get the computer built the way you want it. You can do it at Classic Computer in their new location, 1921 Apple Avenue, Suite B. Call 773-5957. Classic Computer with hometown quality service.
And we are back at Muskegon. Got Mark Molitor, the loser, Mark Molitor.
Second place.
That's what happens when
you knew he was going to get you eventually.
When you cross the host. We've got Mark Molitor, and we've got the hot-ticking Oscar Osbo here.
Yeah.
And coming up after the 9 o'clock hour, we're going to have the county administrator from Ottawa County, so that should be interesting. Hey, I want to just touch base on one other on this day events. Again, we are the result of the past, and the past so often becomes the future. But on this day in history, for those of you who've seen Mike Tyson in movies, and he's, kind of made a comeback. He's kind of a nice, fuzzy guy, almost a little bit like the...
he was hilarious in The Hangover.
Yeah, exactly. Well, on this day in history, Mike Tyson was convicted of raping Desiree Washington, Miss Black American contestant. And you know what? I'm sorry. I don't think the media and our culture ought to be resurrecting convicted rapists, but that's the nature of what happened this day in 1992. Remember that next time you see him. And also interesting.
Yeah, I see him weekly.
Well, you see him on TV, you may very well see him
just
weekly.
like the old days, I'll go to the other side of the road.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, exactly. And on this day in history, 1997, a U.S. Army, the top-ranking enlisted soldier, I'm not going to even say his name, but following allegations of sexual misconduct was convicted and went to jail. So our system does work for some; it doesn't work for everyone. Hey, a couple of issues that I wanted to talk about before we get talking about county type stuff. But I don't know if you heard the top ranking general in the United States. He might even be the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. But he made this comment because a while back they talked about allowing women into combat positions, and whether that's a good idea or bad idea, I don't know. But here's what he said, quote, talking about the military's current sexual assault problem. He said, quote, we've had this ongoing issue with sexual harassment, sexual assault. I believe it's because we've had separate classes of military personnel at some level. So what he's suggesting here, and I think he's full of crap myself, but he's suggesting that because women haven't been allowed to go into combat units, that somehow encourages or I don't know, allows sexual assault to happen. It seems very odd to me.
I'm not quite seeing the connection, but...
Well, it scares me when you have the chief of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the top military man in the United States, who is seems to be buying into that. I don't know. That's like I say, that does scare me. What's on your mind?
Nothing other than waiting for Alan to come in and...
Well, I'm going to talk about a few other things. I was just going to ask you, what do you feel about the women
going to combat?
Going to combat.
Well, I don't have a problem with women in combat. I mean, they would say, "Oh, golly, the guys are going to protect the women." No, the guys are going to protect their buddies, and in many cases,
they all got to watch each other's back. So
may very well be a woman. I don't see that's an issue. I think the important thing, though, is that they have basic requirements. For instance, Navy SEALs and the special ops folks, the physical requirements. And I just can't believe that there are certainly many, and perhaps not even any women that can meet those requirements. But women in combat, I wouldn't be at all surprised that the combat term is broadly defined so that they're not actually, even in the infantry units running up, they can't even keep them in close to the front. So this may very well be a good idea, and I don't know enough about it to say much more than that. But I just seemed odd that one of the benefits is going to be we're not going to have as many women raped. And that
where's the
just
connection?
Seems an odd comment, perhaps taken out of context. But I wanted to mention, well, what do you think since you asked the question?
I kind of feel the same way as you do, but I don't understand where that all came from as far as women be, maybe a lonely night in the foxhole or something. But I don't get why that would be a problem. Especially if women have to go through the whole thing that men have to go through. I know my son was in National Guard, and some of the training that he had to go through and some of the things he had to put up with and going without sleep. And that woman's going to be tough.
Yeah,
that's going to be a tough woman.
If they can do the test and everything
if they can do everything that the guys do, that's a tough woman.
Yeah, the concern is that they may dumb it down. And I know that in particular at West Point and Annapolis, they did dumb down the requirements for women. And maybe they should have. Maybe they should have, but certainly when you're out there in the front lines as a Navy SEAL, we've seen some of these heroics and some of the things that these brave heroes have done, and it does take sheer physical strength and certainly for the woman,
you got to keep your mind together. That's probably the most important thing.
And do you want your wives and your daughters and your granddaughters? Do you want them out there if in fact they're not adequately prepared? I'll tell you this. I remember vividly the first woman who was allowed to fly a Navy jet off an aircraft carrier. Her name was Kara Holtgren, and she was a beautiful, brilliant, very talented young woman. But because the Navy had been under pressure to integrate aircraft carrier operations, they were under pressure to reduce and give her waivers, and where she had clearly flunked, and had she been a male, she would have been washed out. And sadly, she died in an F-14 accident trying to land. She screwed up, and so she's dead because of certain political agendas that certain people have.
I don't think we should dumb things down on me. I'm scared enough when my son has to go over there and fight, let alone,
Yeah. So it can be done right or it can be done wrong. What do you guys bet it's going to be done? What do you think?
Probably right.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, talking about right and wrong, another big debate that's been going on, certainly all over the country, has been this the gun debate. I'm sure that's going to go on for a very long time. But one of the things that always bothers me, and it's been an issue for mine, I've even mentioned it on the show today, is that we need to have the correct information. And there has been a statistic out there that has said that 40% of gun... Oh, geez, Pete's...
Keep in mind that 47.2% of all statistics are made up. So.
Well, you know what? Unfortunately, I guess I didn't. Anyway, there's a statistic out there that has been used time and again against the gun ownership, and to tell you the truth, that it has something to do with how the gun deaths and things of that sort. But here's the interesting thing: most of these studies that are made about anything today come from grants from the federal government, and the National Institutes of Health is one of the prime ones. And the National Institutes of Health has given out 486 grants for studies in the last 20-some years, or 30-some years. Big studies. These will be on guns, gun violence, and gun deaths and things of that sort. 486 studies for infectious diseases. These are just 4 diseases. These are big diseases, though. Cholera, diphtheria, polio, and rabies. Big, important diseases. Total number of deaths in these in these 486 studies is 2,068. Okay, over the last 30 years. All right. So you'd say, boy, that's that's not a lot of deaths to be funding all these big studies. Apparently, the number of firearm injuries, at least has been reported, is over 4 million during that same time. How many real studies given that this is such a big issue, how many real studies has the federal government funded during that time? 3. All right. And apparently, this is the most cited statistic in the secondary market because foes of gun control have thwarted additional research by the federal government to come up with the real numbers. So in other words, one would think, if someone is actively trying to keep you from getting the information, your little kid's got cookie crumbs all over his mouth, and you say, did you have cookies? No, I didn't have it.
Right.
I'm going to look in the cookie jar. No, don't look in the cookie jar. Well, maybe you kind of figured that your son's been in the cookie jar. Well, we have the people that are touting these statistics as their reasons to increase federal gun control, and yet they're saying, oh, no, we're not going to give you any funding for this. 4 million people have died, but we're not going to give you any funding. But in fact, you got 2,068 people that are killed on these 4 big-time diseases over the last 30 years.
I think the one thing that they could focus on, which would be a positive, would be because I have a concealed weapons permit, but really to make it a bigger deal if you get a gun ripped off from you. So when you own a gun, you should be responsible for it when it's at your house if you're not there, and have it in a safe that's locked up that you can't just take the safe out, such that way it keeps the guns out of the people's hands. I mean, because that seems to be their biggest argument. So
that may be, but again, we do have a constitutional amendment. This isn't anything that a law can do. Let's face it, the real problem, as we well know, is the people who use the guns to break the law,
right.
Not the idiot who didn't lock his gun up, which it matters. But I would say you've got to prove to me that you're going to spend more of your efforts going after the bad guys than the good guys, because we've got proof right here that you're going after diseases that don't seem to matter at all. Mm-hmm. And yet, when you could come up with the goods, the real proof to show all these people are dying and being injured by people having their guns stolen, things of that sort, and yet you refuse to do it. So I'm not trusting their motives, and I'm certainly not trusting their methods, and I'm certainly not going to trust them until they clarify things, which we know they will not. But we got a break coming up. Oscar's getting frowny-faced with me. So we'll be back after this break, after the news, and we'll be talking with the Ottawa County Administrator. We'll be right back.
Make a run for the border. Taco Bell is waiting to cook for you. Delicious tacos, nachos, chalupas, gorditas, quesadillas, or try their famous grilled stuffed burrito for only $1.99. Make it a combo for only $3.49. Their large variety includes specialties, combos, supreme, salads, and kids' meals. Taco Bell, the best fast food north of the border. So walk in or drive up. Visit all of the Taco Bells in West Michigan. Open Sunday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. Taco Bell's open Fridays and Saturdays from 10 a.m. until 1 a.m.
$5,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the suspect or suspects responsible for the death of Alvaro Lora. Alvaro was 72 years old, was found by his daughter on April 27th inside his home in Muskegon, brutally stabbed and beaten to death. And still the homicide remains a mystery. Please help Alvaro's family for justice. Anyone with information is urged to contact the Muskegon Heights Police Department at 231-733-8900 or Silent Observer at 72 Crime.
Bad boys, what you want, what you want, what you gonna do when Sheriff John Brown come for you?
Call Bad Boys Bail Bonds, open 24/7, 365 days a year. Agents statewide and nationwide. We do 10% bonds for less. Call toll free 866-728-6400. And remember, if we can't get you out, you ain't getting out. Payment plans available. Call now, 866-728-6400. Classic Computer Sales and Service. They buy, sell, trade, repair, and upgrade. New custom-built computers, 3-year guarantee, excludes laptops. Or your computer tuned up with more memory, hard drive, or maybe a DVD burner installed for $49.95. Need cables, power supply, or get the computer built the way you want it. You can do it at Classic Computer in their new location, 1921 Apple Avenue, Suite B. Call 773-5957. Classic Computer with hometown quality service.
And we are back at I Am Muskegon, Muskegon County's only political talk radio show. We are the number one rated. I keep forgetting to say this and reminding folks, though. We are the number one rated political talk radio show in West Michigan. Who knows? We might be the number one rated political talk radio show that focuses on Muskegon in the galaxy. But we don't have...
have they picked you up on any national radio shows yet?
Not yet. Not yet. Although, it is interesting. We are getting calls. I get calls from folks from some of the think tanks from the Mackinac Center. I forget the name of it now, but there's a similar center in Wisconsin, and some folks asking about what's going on, because we do some of our own down home research in terms of going to county commission meetings, going to city meetings, reading things that, needless to say, even a think tank doesn't have the staff to cover everybody. Right. And we get on the radio show and on the on my email, which is ionmuskegon@gmail.com, or either of the blogs, which is ionmuskegon.com or muskegonpundit.com. I get comments, and we do get information from folks that say, "Hey, take a look at this," or "I've got some information I'd like you to look at."
You are kind of national, though. You're on YouTube. You're on iHeart. I mean, come on, you're national.
Well, actually, we are.
Global
on
YouTube.
Global. And you can listen to the show every Sunday morning, of course, as you may be right now, at 8:30 to 10. But you can watch the show anytime you like, and all of the past shows, either on YouTube, which would be the Jim Riley YouTube site, or ionmuskegon.com, or Oscar has so wonderfully got us on TV. Monday nights, we are on primetime, 8 to 9:30. We're absolutely blowing out the segment. Those other shows constantly have to change because they can't keep up with us. We are on TV 38 and Comcast 397. But we have a great guest here this morning, one that I have really been interested in having on the show. And we have Ottawa County Administrator Alan Vanderburgh.
Vanderburgh? You go by Al or Alan?
Al.
Al,
okay. And I'm going to try to call you Al rather than... Thanks for coming here. Good morning. One of the issues that's been interesting to me, as you know, Muskegon County is in the midst of a brouhaha in terms of building a jail. And that is one of the few statutory, or not statutory actually, it's by the Constitution of the state of Michigan, it's one of the few requirements that the county sheriff has to provide. Not necessarily a jail, but a place to put prisoners while they wait to go to court, and those prisoners, I believe it's under a year kind of a thing. And I know that you folks out in Ottawa County built a jail some time ago, not a really long time ago.
1993, and expanded it in 2005.
Okay, that's the one. That's what I'm referring to then, is the expansion. And what I had been told by some folks, and I don't know if it's true or not, that's why we're asking you, was that one of the reasons for the expansion was that there was a belief that the extra beds could be rented out, and in fact this could be a profit-making or money-making on some level endeavor. How did that work out?
Well, we do rent beds to the federal government. We also house state prisoners at times. We also assist other counties. But it isn't a major focus of the jail as far as a major piece of our revenue, but it is something we do use for our excess capacity. Okay,
and what's the general capacity? Here in Muskegon, they tell us that it's we're above capacity all the time. What's the capacity of your jail?
We typically are running right now at about 60% capacity.
Okay, so
and how many beds do you have total?
362, right in that range.
362.
Okay. Yeah.
Is there... what's the division between men and women, or can you actually change it if you need to?
Actually, we don't have a segregated pod for females, but they are kept separate. They're housed separate from the males.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the point I'm making, and I didn't know the answer. I was kind of hoping you would answer the way you did. But
so 60% of 3.
Well, the facts are that I don't know what the expansion was, but you've got a jail that's far larger than you need, and I suspect those people, the proponents of the jail at the time, said, "Oh, we have to have it. We need to spend this money because we desperately need to do it." I mean, typically, you're not going to have a politician say, "We need to spend money, but heck, this is a bad idea. We don't need it, but we just want to spend it because it's fun to spend." Let me, and Mark, you jump in on any time you like, but you're familiar with our situation with our county doesn't have additional money. The discretionary budget for Muskegon County government is around $42 million a year, and the estimates to build a new jail are anywhere between $20 to $60 million, depending on what day of the week an expert tells you the numbers.
Ken Mahoney said 23 to 27. So.
Yeah, and then Bonnie Hammersley in the paper said some that are 30 to 35. So we don't know really what's going on in that. But the reality is that that's an awful lot of money for a county that has a budget, discretionary budget that is beyond filled. We don't have additional money, and plus we're borrowing money to pay for the retiree health care and pension. So clearly we're not in a position to get frivolous here. But you've got a jail that's got 100 beds or so available.
What do you charge, offhand, what you charge per day?
Well, it depends. The federal government pays more than the state, but it's about $35 a day.
Which I think is what our costs run. I keep hearing $40 a day from our county.
Well, those costs, I believe that those are marginal costs. Those costs do not include the capital cost of building the jail. They probably don't include...
I was talking about the current jail was, I think, 35 to 40. So
I mean, these are marginal costs. And it's marginal income again. It's sort of like if somebody gave you a Blockbuster video store and you didn't have to pay for the building or the utilities or the videos, you'd probably make a profit, because your costs were nothing. But anyway, have you been, or has anybody, maybe your sheriff's department would be the better way to go, but has anybody in your area been approached by the folks in Muskegon about possibility utilizing your excess capacity?
I don't know if we've been approached about using excess capacity, because obviously with gas prices the way they are, if you had to run every prisoner, that far, transportation
back and forth.
I mean, there was a proposal to do a regional jail in Kent County a few years ago, and as different counties looked at that, the transportation costs to run all of your traffic to and from court to Kent County, where the regional jail would be, was really kind of a massive expense. So that didn't make it any further.
It would only make sense.
So I don't know if those discussions have happened as a regular business practice, but my guess is it would be very expensive.
Okay, and that makes sense. And plus, you'd be tying up very well-compensated sheriffs and other folks and vehicles and things of that sort.
Right.
So that being the case, the concept of Muskegon building a jail in excess of its necessary capacity in order to attract prisoners from other areas is a concept that's been proven essentially not to really be a very good, certainly not
unless they're already
financially.
through conviction and they're just finishing up their term. There's a certain percentage of people that are actually through the sentencing process, and okay, they've got 6 months to finish up. So,
or if you can attract the state and federal traffic,
right?
Because I think that
they're
they
staying
pay
for
a little
while.
better, and
right.
That's right. But you can't attract the state and federal traffic because you've got 40% of your jails empty. You're trying, I'm sure, as hard as you can, and certainly other places doing the same thing.
Now, I should say our juvenile home, though, we actually have contracts with 7 other counties and with a Native American tribe and with others where they pay us every single day through the year to rent space in the juvenile home.
And do you have access capacity there as well?
Yeah, we do. In fact, we had a full home, and we were paying about $2 million a year to send youth into the state system. And basically, the courts took a community-minded approach, and they said, how can we provide programs in the community for people to keep from sending them off to the state? Then they come back, they're engaging in the same behavior. And ultimately, they almost emptied out the juvenile home, and at one time we weren't sending any onto the state, and turned what was a $2 million cost into a $700,000 revenue by having these bed contracts. So that's 7 other counties, Native American tribe, they pay every day to have a space, and then if they put someone there, they pay a more amount during the time they're actually there and receiving.
And where's that located in Ottawa County?
That's right in the same campus as a jail at the Fillmore Complex.
Okay.
So it's not part of this jail. They're separated. But it's on the same campus.
Because that is the second thing we're looking at is the juvenile
and it's out of the
transition
way.
home.
And as Mark mentioned, once the prisoners or these juveniles have been tried or they get their sentence and they don't have to go back and forth between court, then they can be settled for however many months they have
avoid
remaining.
the transportation costs.
There we go.
Right, absolutely.
So this is a situation where we've got a county right next to Muskegon County that has available beds,
yes,
that has figured out how to do it intelligently, and I would suspect that no one in Muskegon County, certainly none of the county commissioners, has bothered to look at this seriously as an option.
Can we back up just 1 minute, just for the listeners, I guess? Could you give, how long have you been at Ottawa County, and
sure,
where were you before that, just to show that you're credible on these subjects?
Well, yeah, I've been,
sounds pretty credible to me.
County administrator for 9 years in Ottawa County.
Okay.
Prior to that, I was a deputy county administrator in Kent County for 4.5 years. City manager of South Haven for 8.5 years before that. Assistant city manager in Greenville before that. But born and raised in Ottawa County. My family immigrated here in 1855, but a strong Muskegon and Ottawa roots. My family owned Vanderburgh Fisheries in Muskegon for over 100 years downtown. The fish stores and the tugs, down in Fisherman's Village and Port Sherman. And
great.
So long history in both places.
So you've been in a lot of different cities and counties.
Yeah.
Getting back to the jail then real quick, the one big debate right here that we have is that our county, by their own policy, says that any county money spent over $100,000 has to follow prevailing wage. And I'm wondering, do you have any experiences? Does Ottawa County have a prevailing wage other than federal and state?
No, in fact, Ottawa County would avoid paying prevailing wage unless legally required by the state or federal government.
Let me before we get into this any deeper, I'd like to just give a quick explanation of what prevailing wage is. There are essentially the Davis-Bacon laws that require that when federal money is involved, union wages and union benefits must be paid if something is going to be built using federal money. The state of Michigan has its own law. I don't know what it's called, but it requires that prevailing wage be utilized when state money is given to the county or city and they build something or they use it to certain levels of spending. In other words, requiring not necessarily that the companies be the union have union labor, but in fact that they pay the union wages and union benefits, and
follow their guidelines.
And follow their guidelines and the paperwork and everything else. Now, the counties and the cities are not under these requirements when they're spending their own money. And as we have discussed in the past, from folks from the Mackinac Center and others, very few, or relatively few, counties in the state of Michigan have decided on their own to impose prevailing wage upon their own spending. In other words, they can, Muskegon County, if they're going to build a jail, going to spend $40 million. We can have bids from union contractor construction companies, non-union. They can decide what they're going to pay their own employees, whatever they want. They're not going to be imposed upon by any artificial laws, and in this case, laws that were just simply voted upon by the county commissioners. I want to get into this just one more step before we let you talk about it, because the Muskegon County Commissioners a couple weeks ago made 2 changes to the prevailing wage law that they had imposed upon themselves in Muskegon County.
Yeah,
it's not a law. Thank you. It's a policy. And they tried to have it both ways. They tried to say, well, we have to have prevailing wage in Muskegon because it's a policy. And we can't change policy. And at that same meeting, they made 2 changes to the policy, voted on it. The incongruity seemed lost by all but one of the county commissioners. Every county commissioner, with the exception of Susie Hughes, voted for the changes, including the 2 Republicans. So if, in fact...
Susie tried to ask Commissioner Hughes to ask several questions, and it was actually almost comical. The runaround in the answers.
It might have been comical, but it was really sad. It was that's on Ian Muskegon. It's the Ways and Means meeting of this past 2 months ago. You know what I'll do? I'll upgrade that and update it. But yes, Susie Hughes was asking very specific questions about it. Got the total runaround from everybody. But I think the most important thing here, because we're talking about money, prevailing wage as a matter of practice isn't something that is expensive because to counties, at least Muskegon County, because Muskegon County doesn't have a lot of money to spend on things. It gets money from other places. But building the jail is something where they're going to be spending in the multi-millions of dollars. This particular rule, which is purely a gift to the Muskegon County Board of Commissioners' friends who own union construction companies and the unions themselves, could cost and will cost the citizens of Muskegon County.
Now, before you say the number, let's give Alan a chance to give his opinion on what it would cost. That way,
there we go. Yeah, I like that stop. Yeah. Okay, Alan, you're under the gun.
I took this on
in
Greenville when I worked with Congressman Paul Henry to carve out Montcalm County from Kent County's wage study.
Okay,
and I actually had a death threat from an electrical union at the time. And for a project that we did this for, we lowered the wages by 38% and the benefits by 120%. So it could be huge dollars, but it's going to be different based on every labor market, what the unions make, how the feds do the study, how they average that all out. But my guess is
38%?
38% was the reduction in wages that we had to pay to get that federally funded project done, and 120% less in benefits.
Wow.
So you worked on lowering them because you had
we
to use
worked through
prevailing
Paul
wage.
Henry to get our own special Montcalm County study because we were in with Kent County, and obviously Kent County is a different world than Montcalm County.
Gotcha.
And if you can actually separate it out, and obviously the unions weren't happy because they were making Kent County Davis-Bacon wages doing work in Montcalm County.
Right. So,
well, okay. So those numbers, we'd have to reverse mathematize them, and we've got an engineer at least here with us. But
without his calculator, though, so I'm useless.
Significant. Well, it's clear, and let's face it.
Slide rule either?
You don't need a slide rule. You don't need a calculator. You don't even need an engineer to know that if you're going to impose union wages and union benefits and the union paperwork to comply with the prevailing wage policy, which is, by the way, what they expanded in this last change in Muskegon County, it's going to cost you more. And it's not just the big contractor, because it's all the subcontractors. So let's just say you are a minority-owned subcontractor and you've got 3 people and you specialize in putting in carpet, let's say. If, in fact, you're not union, chances are you got yourself and your 2 kids working. You have to have the ability to generate the paperwork and the benefits and everything else for this one particular contract. If you're going to reduce the number of people who can bid on your project, which is really what this is all about. It's about getting rid of competition and keeping very, very expensive companies alive without competition. You know it's going to cost you more. The unions say it won't cost us any more at all, and yet they fight like crazy to keep this.
Well, I think, Jim, you've really hit on the heart of the difference between Ottawa and Muskegon counties. And if I could just take maybe 30 seconds just to say that Ottawa and Muskegon counties were all Ottawa County until 1859.
I did not know that.
When the state legislature wanted to implant a Republican county in West Michigan, because all the counties were Democrat. And at the very same time, the Ottawa County Board of Supervisors was concerned with the rapid growth in Grand Haven and its ability to provide services over such an expanse. And so these two thought processes came together, and the two counties split apart in 1859, and Muskegon County became the only Republican county in West Michigan.
Muskegon or Ottawa?
Muskegon.
Oh.
So
how'd that work out for you guys?
Republican,
Yeah.
It was the first Republican-dominated legislature in 1859, because the Republican Party wasn't founded until 1854. They ran the first presidential candidate in 1856. Well, 1859, you find your first state legislature in Lansing that's Republican, and no Republican counties.
Wow.
So they wanted to create a Republican county. Muskegon County was that county. Ottawa County was a Democrat county, and in fact, 1864 was the last time that Ottawa County voted for a Democratic presidential candidate. They voted for George McClellan over Abraham Lincoln because McClellan promised to get the nation out of the Civil War, and all those old CRC folks in Ottawa County didn't like war and they wanted out. Okay, so what do I say? Since that time, we've gone in divergent paths.
Yep.
And you've hit right at the heart of it. Muskegon County is a heavy labor-oriented county. Ottawa County is not.
Blue collar and beer.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at, when I started at Ottawa County, we had 11 unions. We have 7 today. The Michigan Nurses Association decided to not represent Ottawa County employees anymore just a couple months ago. We have 2 more unions that are saying, what is the value of paying dues? Because we came aboard, it was a kind of a hostile labor situation, and the board wanted better communication, better cooperation, and that's led to a completely changed union environment at the county level. But if you look at our workforce in manufacturing, even where there are unions, they don't have a heavy labor attitude. You don't see those massive battles and strikes.
Gotcha.
We're able to maintain really good costs throughout the county. We have experts in lean manufacturing, engineering throughout the county, and that's why I think we see those Ottawa County leading the nation percentage-wise in job growth right now.
Well, we're going to come back after this break, but it's clear that pandering to the non-competitive types has really been very helpful to Ottawa County, not so helpful to Muskegon County. We'll be right back.
$5,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the suspect or suspects responsible for the death of Alvaro Lora. Alvaro was 72 years old, was found by his daughter on April 27th inside his home in Muskegon, brutally stabbed and beaten to death. And still the homicide remains a mystery. Please help Alvaro's family for justice. Anyone with information is urged to contact the Muskegon Heights Police Department at 231-733-8900 or Silent Observer at 72 Crime.
Bad boys, what you want, what you want, what you gonna do when Sheriff John Brown come for you?
Call Bad Boys Bail Bonds, open 24/7, 365 days a year. Agents statewide and nationwide. We do 10% bonds for less. Call toll free 866-728-6400. And remember, if we can't get you out, you ain't getting out. Payment plans available. Call now, 866-728-6400. Classic Computer Sales and Service. They buy, sell, trade, repair, and upgrade. New custom-built computers, 3-year guarantee, excludes laptops. Or your computer tuned up with more memory, hard drive, or maybe a DVD burner installed for $49.95. Need cables, power supply, or get the computer built the way you want it. You can do it at Classic Computer in their new location, 1921 Apple Avenue, Suite B. Call 773-5957. Classic Computer with hometown quality service.
Make a run for the border. Taco Bell is waiting to cook for you. Delicious tacos, nachos, chalupas, gorditas, quesadillas, or try their famous grilled stuffed burrito for only $1.99. Make it a combo for only $3.49. Their large variety includes specialties, combos, supreme salads, and kids' meals. Taco Bell, the best fast food north of the border. So walk in or drive up. Visit all of the Taco Bells in West Michigan. Open Sunday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. Taco Bell's open Fridays and Saturdays from 10 a.m. until 1 a.m.
And we're back. Muskegon's #1 rated political talk radio show. This is your host, Jim Riley. Got Mark Molitor and Ottawa County Administrator Alan Vanderburgh. And we are talking about some of the relative differences between Muskegon County and Ottawa County. And clearly, anybody who's driven around, anybody who's looked at any of the statistics, Ottawa County is a county that is vibrant. It is growing. Muskegon County, well, I would say we have arguably far greater natural resources and natural beauty. We don't seem to be attracting businesses, and certainly our finances are not nearly as optimistic as you folks down in Ottawa County.
What's the unemployment right now in Muskegon County?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer, but I know
high
that
nines, I believe.
Well, the unemployment numbers are effectively worthless these days because, well, and I'll tell you, there are two reasons. Because of course,
as long as you're doing an apples to apples, you can get it.
I'll tell you another reason why they're not, and apples the apples don't work in this particular case because they only take into consideration those people who are actually
looking for a job,
not looking for a job. Those people who are actively looking for a job and able to, they haven't used up their unemployment. But unlike Ottawa County, whose population has grown, Muskegon County's population has declined. And that dichotomy changes the numbers, the power of the numbers.
Yep.
But I wanted to mention, we're going to move. To me, prevailing wage is huge, but it's only a one-up issue because of our jail. But one of the policies that Muskegon County Board of Commissioners has had in place since I've been following the Muskegon County Board meetings is that they do provide an opportunity for citizens to make comments twice in a meeting. One at the beginning of the meeting, they limit you to 2 minutes.
We do the same.
That's very reasonable. And then at the end of the meeting, they also...
Very difficult for Jim to hold himself to 2 minutes, though.
Actually, I'm quite precise when I have an opportunity to speak. But they also have a policy. This is an unwritten policy, but it's a policy that, in fact, they follow almost rigidly of not responding to any kind of question or any type of comment. So, in other words, if we
have that same approach.
Okay, now I think there's something wrong with that. Tell me why it's a good policy.
Well, I think it's because when I was city manager in South Haven, you'd have more give and take between folks that showed up at the meeting and the board. And the reason was we were a city of 6,000 year-round, 18,000 in the summer. When you represent 262,000 people, and Kent County does this the same way as well, it's difficult to use the time that you have to spend legislating, doing policy work, and governing for 266,000 people in a give and take with somebody that has questions that can be very easily answered offline as well. And so you wouldn't want your meetings to degenerate into a long
How many people do you have attend meetings?
Typically not many. There we go.
We typically, it's very rare to have more than 3 or 4 citizens attend. So as a practical matter, 250-some thousand people may be a big number, but in terms of getting answers to people, and I would respectfully disagree with the policy that you folks have and that we have here in Muskegon. And I'll tell you why. Because it's one thing to get an answer, ask a question and get an answer from a particular either employee, department head, or county commissioner, or even the county administrator on the side, and then have that person either say, "Oh, I didn't say that," or "I didn't really know." In particular with our county commissioners, they just come up with answers like so many politicians quite often do. But more importantly, if the question has value, doesn't it make sense to have it on the record? That way, hundreds of people, maybe 260-some thousand people, could see it on the video here in Muskegon County. We have 272,000 people in our county, and that would be an opportunity to have that question answered.
172,000.
172. I'm sorry. Thank you. Yeah, we need
off
that.
by 100,000.
We need a math guy at the edge here for every show. Anyway, I just wanted to find out how you stood on that.
I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about Ottawa County. I think when I look at their strategic plan, is probably got one of the best strategic plans that I've seen. Not only is it well done, it's actually very easy to follow if you're not into strategic plan. I mean, I work for a company that we do a lot of strategic planning, and it's almost following the same type of format, strength, weaknesses, but you actually do it in such a way that you educate the reader as you're reading it.
Right. Yeah.
It kind of explains, okay, what is your vision, what the vision means. This is why you actually have a vision. This is why you have a mission. This is why you have objectives. And then it walks you right through it. But this is a process I think has been started maybe 6-7 years ago. And I guess what value has it really played in the success of Ottawa County?
Well, it's it's played a huge role in our success, I think. Now, I should say that I don't take credit for the success of Ottawa County. We've had outstanding boards and staffs for 30 years that have contributed mightily, and I'm fortunate to be the current steward of county administrator in Ottawa County, and I hope to carry that tradition forward. But the strategic planning process was an attempt to. I started at Ottawa County. There were 2 huge file drawers full of strategic plans, and there were some awesome things in there. We're the first county to create a countywide dispatch authority. We have a Parks Commission. But it wasn't part of our annual business process. Now what we do is every single year, just 2 days ago, the Board of Commissioners met. They reviewed our static parts of the plan, vision, mission, overarching goals, values, to make sure they're in concert with that, because we have 4 new commissioners. And then they moved into the business planning portion. Each year they look at the objectives that we create to carry out, get us closer to those overarching goals. And we use kind of a Disney storyboarding format, with them to get them to that, to a point where then they will adopt the plan. And then half of my performance evaluation is how we do getting that plan done. So when I do performance evaluations of my executive team, half of their evaluation is how we did getting the plan done.
Do you bring in a facilitator?
Right on down to all the employees.
When you have your strategic
meeting?
Actually,
I do that.
You're the facilitator.
And I've done that for probably 30 different groups, and we do it for free for any of the local units in the county to help them. And the benefit, it's a consensus building exercise on where we're going.
So on your review, like you have scores 1 through 5. I mean, on average,
I usually get at 4.6, anywhere from 4.4 to 4.7.
I think our administrator, she gets solid 5s from all the commissioners, which I think means that they're not taking the review seriously.
Yeah, I mean, I have a great bunch. I mean, because I need I need constructive criticism.
Right.
I mean, I need to know how I'm doing, and I've never been threatened by that. Because again, my job is a stewardship job. And it's not personal. It's not mine. I'm a placeholder.
Right. You're facilitating the completion of this, what you've come up with. Okay. That's great.
Let me ask this, because I know, Mark, this has been a big issue for you. It was an issue that you ran your campaign on, or one of the issues. And the strategic plan, as is critical in business, and as we've just found out is critical in county governance also. You did a little research, you did a little investigation into how Muskegon County's strategic plan is handled. What did you find, Mark?
The last time they met to have actually a strategic plan, it was 2010. They got together. They went over the vision and the mission. One commissioner actually wanted to add that we would be fiscally responsible, and it was I think Commissioner Mahoney or Chairman Mahoney actually cut that off and said, no, we don't. That's implied, which it's not in Muskegon County. But they actually, when I asked for it, it took the Director of Finance a few days to actually find it, because it had never been published, and it was never really put together. It was just a long Word document of what had been discussed. So they really never took it to completion or communicated it to the county, which is a pretty big disappointment. And when I campaigned, part of my thing was we really need to do the long-term planning. We need to be looking out at least 5 years, because we got some pretty major things happening in Muskegon County. We have the Cobb plant that's going to be closing down in I think around 2014, end of 14,
next
15.
Year, I believe it is next year.
We lost Sappi a couple years ago, so some of our major taxpayers and our revenue sources are drying up, and if we don't stop turning the faucet off now, it's going to just be terrible. But when I brought up unemployment, because I was recently on the news, it was just reported that Ottawa County has some of the best job growth, especially Holland area.
In the country.
In the country, yes. You were just saying, in the country. And I guess, your objectives, your long-term objectives are obviously to be almost a debt-free county, and you're just about there. And do you really think that has driven these jobs coming in?
I think there's so many factors that drive the jobs, and I think it really all goes back to culture. But I think having a talented workforce is key. Having companies that are at the cutting edge of lean technology and ISO 9000 and
Holland Hitch, for example.
Holland Hitch, exactly. I mean, there's
that's right word.
There's so many companies like that. But also, what is the culture? What are the taxes? We have the 5th lowest taxes in the state. What's the debt? We have the lowest debt-to-debt equity ratio in Michigan. All those things can keep the cost of business down, because what we charge business is that much lower. Now, of course, then each business is in a township, in a city, and overall you'll find that local governments in Ottawa County are also frugal. And just one factor that I think can starkly show the difference. And let me preface that by saying that we work closely with Muskegon County administration. Bonnie Hammersley's doing a great job. The board commissioners work with my commissioners on different state things. And so I am not casting any aspersions on Muskegon County as it's currently run, but there are differences in the cultures that have led to differences in outcomes. One of those is Ottawa County never approved retiree health for its employees, where Muskegon County, to my knowledge, approved retiree health for the employee and the spouse. That one difference alone, when we had to start reporting other post-employment benefit liability, Ottawa County's is $700,000. The 2012 data we had for Muskegon suggested that Muskegon was $71 million.
$71 million.
And so that's a load.
Can you run those numbers by one more time? Okay. Ottawa County's underfunding.
No, of post. Other post-employment benefits. So,
which is pension and
not
it's
pension. Really retiree health.
It's retiree health.
Right. Care vision,
and so we allow retirees to buy county health care at their cost, and we blend the rates. So they aren't rated as elderly or retired people.
Yep.
Okay.
So they pay the same rate as a current employee.
Okay.
And that
so they
does
get the benefit of a group policy.
That creates a subsidy.
Okay.
And then our police get $10 per year up to 25 years off a single subscriber health plan. Those are pretty tiny benefits.
But let's see how that translates. You said
700 to
700,000.
700,000 is our total liability for the future to pay for those benefits that I just outlined.
And Muskegon County's...
The number we saw last year was $70 million.
Right.
Yeah.
And they are, part of their plan was to have that reduced, I think, in 30 years. But it seems like as that one's lowering, the pension deficit is growing. So we're not able to keep up with both, I don't think.
And so, no, that's not casting anything on the current. I mean, this die was cast decades ago.
Yeah, but
the folks in power now, in charge now, need to figure out how to handle this huge load that's been passed down to them.
The folks in Muskegon County had faced up to it, and they have figured out how they're going to handle it. And a little more than a year ago, they did, without any public committee meeting, they had a full board meeting. There was actually not even an agenda published, nor did some of the county commissioners know what was going to be discussed when they went to the meeting. And they went in and they voted on 7 of the 10. The other 3 followed union contracts, and they voted to continue essentially the same policies that they've got. They made some minor changes to some of the, not all, but some of the new employees. But essentially, they did address it. They looked at it and they said, hey, we don't mind driving off a cliff. I'm going to be far less sympathetic than maybe anyone in this room, because they know what's going on. And the ultimate problem is, and you said something, Alan, that really caught me, was that companies, when they do site selection, they look at not just what are they going to pay in taxes, which matters. They look at culture, and it's not just country music versus rock and roll or rap music, but they look at the culture of the county management. They look at the culture of the city and the village management, and they also look at the debt that is sitting out there that has yet to be addressed, that any businessman knows someone's going to have to pick up that cost. And if I put my big factory
sooner
in
or later,
here,
the bill's going to become due, and
they're going to go after the deepest pockets. Yeah. So I would say that good for you. It saddens me that we don't have more back and forth. It's truly sad when you can see that county commissioners don't even have a sense of the kind of debt that they have hanging over them. And I'll say one other thing when you talk about healthcare debt. Everybody knows that every single analysis of future healthcare debt is an understatement of the issue.
It's not. It's only going one way. It's getting more expensive.
It's only going one way. It's getting more expensive.
I have to say one other thing, though. What makes my job easy is the fact that my board of commissioners is elected from a citizenry that has a set of values. And so my values are largely in concert with the values of the county. And so it almost, in a way, isn't going to matter a lot who you have in leadership if they're not in sync with the values of the people in the county. And so I don't know what that is in Muskegon County, but I know that the outcomes that are produced in Ottawa County are largely because of the people that live there, that elect the people that are my bosses, and then impacts the fact that I get hired, and then who I hire, and the vision and mission we do. It's part of a system, and not just part of who's elected yesterday and who's appointed today. And
Alan, you clearly have an easier job in getting the word out, but I will tell you this right now, that and people that I've spoken to, when they find out the kind of unfunded debt that we have in health care and pensions, when they find out the kind of numbers that Mark has so brilliantly put together in his campaign comparing Muskegon to Ottawa County, when they see these things, they all of a sudden say, oh my golly. In many cases, they don't even believe it, because sadly, we don't have a newspaper that has gotten the word out. This radio show, and having you folks here on the radio and on the air, and thankfully on the internet also, and TV, we're trying to get that word out. I think when people see that there is a big iceberg ahead, and that in fact you can turn the ship, they're more than willing to change that, maybe not their culture per se, but certainly change their gut reaction. But sadly, we have not yet gotten to the rest of the folks in Muskegon County, or at least enough of them.
There's probably about 1% that know this information, unfortunately.
And unfortunately, that's it. So, but having folks like you, again, you've not thrown any stones. You've just said, this is what we're doing.
Right.
I'm the one who's throwing the stones because I live here.
Yeah.
I live here.
When you compare the 3.6 mills to our 5.7, it shows that what you're doing is working for the community.
The tax rate, which is double. It's double here in Muskegon as it is in Ottawa County. Oscar, you're making wild hand gestures to me, and
are we on break?
I have finally picked it up, so we're going to take a break.
Make a run for the border. Taco Bell is waiting to cook for you. Delicious tacos, nachos, chalupas, gorditas, quesadillas, or try their famous grilled stuffed burrito for only $1.99. Make it a combo for only $3.49. Their large variety includes specialties, combos, supreme salads, and kids' meals. Taco Bell, the best fast food north of the border. So walk in or drive up. Visit all of the Taco Bells in West Michigan. Open Sunday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. Taco Bell's open Fridays and Saturdays from 10 a.m. until 1 a.m.
Bad boys, what you want, what you want, what you gonna do when Sheriff John Brown come for you?
Call Bad Boys Bail Bonds. Open 24/7, 365 days a year. Agents statewide and nationwide. We do 10% bonds for less. Call toll free 866-728-6400. And remember, if we can't get you out, you ain't getting out. Payment plans available. Call now, 866-728-6400. $5,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the suspect or suspects responsible for the death of Alvaro Lora. Alvaro was 72 years old, was found by his daughter on April 27th inside his home in Muskegon, brutally stabbed and beaten to death. And still, the homicide remains a mystery. Please help Alvaro's family for justice. Anyone with information is urged to contact the Muskegon Heights Police Department at 231-733-8900 or Silent Observer at 72-CRIME. Classic Computer Sales and Service. They buy, sell, trade, repair, and upgrade. New custom-built computers, 3-year guarantee, excludes laptops. Or your computer tuned up with more memory, hard drive, or maybe a DVD burner installed for $49.95. Need cables, power supply, or get the computer built the way you want it. You can do it at Classic Computer in their new location, 1921 Apple Avenue, Suite B. Call 773-5957. Classic Computer with hometown quality service.
And we are back at IM Muskegon, and we've got with us Ottawa County Administrator Alan Vanderburgh, myself, Jim Riley, and Mark Molitor. Mark, you had a question.
Well, we just got done talking about the health benefits and that the difference between Ottawa and Muskegon, and I believe you mentioned you had 6 union contracts. You have recently, I think you changed the policies
down to 7 now. But
down to 7.
Right.
You've changed the pension plan for the administration that's not union, but I believe in next year there's some new contracts that are going to change the pension payouts.
We have 13 different pension groups in the county, and all 13 have now approved having their new hires go to a defined contribution plan instead of the defined benefit plan. The projected savings from that move are $38 million over 30 years. And it will cost us about $8 million to implement.
That's just for new hires, though.
Just for new hires.
Okay, I thought some of the old ones were going on.
Think of it like
a
rat going through a snake. You basically are going to have a big increase in cost because you're cutting off the pipeline of money that goes in from the new employees that are in the DC to pay that used to pay for the people that are in the DB. But once you get through that, I mean, it really helps in the future.
Well, and not only that, if you do avoid it, then the amount that you owe, the size of the rat and the snake, gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it makes it even that harder to digest down the road. Muskegon County, to their credit, did make changes. They have 10 union. They have 10 union contracts. They did make changes in 7 of those contracts for new hires. But 3 of the union contracts, which include I believe the highest paid union employees, they did not make those changes. And interestingly, in Muskegon County, where they did make a move, which they said was going to save, I believe, $500,000 or maybe even $1 million a year in their health care for current employees, they almost immediately gave all the current employees $1 million worth of bonuses. So they negated that good judgment, and they continue. They've given $2 million over the last, I think, 14 months.
You've hit on the 2 costs that are hardest for public employers to manage are going to be pension and health care.
Right.
And we took a axe to our health care cost. My commissioners basically said, look at what our major corporations are doing. And with great cooperation from Hayworth and Gentex, we were able to retool our whole health plan, and we saved over $5.2 million the first year and about $4.5 million the second year, and basically added choice. We added 2 plans so we wouldn't have to really negotiate with the unions as far as all or nothing but we incented people to move from that high-cost plan down to an HSA. And the whole concept is to make employees managers of their own health, make their own health care decisions. And then also we put in a health management plan that is really geared towards cutting future claims costs.
Now, Ottawa County used to actually be self-insured, but I believe you moved away from that.
Yeah, we actually went to fully insured. We bid it out, and much to our surprise, the fully insured plan was actually quite a bit cheaper than a self-insured plan, and priority was the lowest bid in both cases. So we were really surprised. But yeah, since 1983 through 2011, we'd been self-insured, and in January of 2011, we went fully insured.
So what percent do employees have to pay of their plan then?
Well, employees are paying 25% of the deductible for the HSA. That goes to 50% next year. In the 2 more expensive plans or higher plans, they're paying 20% of the copay.
What about, like I pay 20% of my actual plan out of my check, not the deductible, and I can have a deductible beyond that.
That's what the employees that have the 180 and the 90/70 plan pay is 20 right out of their paycheck as a copay. With the HSA, we're not doing a copay. We had 5%, but now we're moving to a 50% of the deductible. Studies show that employees will engage at HSA and make wise decisions about their health at the point they pay 50% of the deductible. It really has nothing to do with paying a percentage of the premium, but it has everything to do with paying because that's the amount where they're managing their health and they're interacting with doctors on pharmaceuticals and healthcare. And we have had the kinds of questions and conversations that I hoped, and it's beyond my wildest dreams, the extent that people are saying, hey, wait a minute, the county's putting money into this HSA, that's now my money. If I manage that right, I can carry that into the future.
Okay.
Clearly, you folks are looking at things in a out of the box way, in a way that I know that Mark would be very familiar with. I know that when I was employed and when I owned businesses, I tried to analyze my business in that same manner. If it's happening at Muskegon County, as Mark has done his research, it isn't apparent, and it would seem to me that you're sitting here next to me, Alan. You're more than happy to come up to a county next door, get on a radio show that you probably never listened to before. But you're proud of your county because you've done some really cool things. And it seems to me that pride and that good feeling that it's clear it emanates from your very being here. It would be nice if our county commissioners and our county administrator could say the same things and have that same emotion.
It took Ottawa County many decades to get to this position. So I mean, it's this isn't something we're going to fix in Muskegon County overnight for sure. But we definitely we have to. We've got to start. We've got to start.
There's steps that you can take, and I did a speech at the Michigan Association of Counties conference, and one of the amazing things Ottawa County has are financing tools, where we have set-asides that have grown over time for different things. The ironic note is the administrator that set that up was Kurt Humphreys, who was hired away from being the Muskegon County finance director. And so in the 1980s, he went to Ottawa County. He set up all these financing tools. There was no money to put in them at the time, but when the 90s hit, ripping and roaring, they filled up those financing tools and were able to cut taxes 10 out of 12 years and were able to start some pretty good programming. And so I've always found there's a little irony in that.
I would say there's an awful lot of irony there. And one thing that business people know, and most of us who've got successful, fulfilling lives know, that it's foolish to spend your life trying to reinvent the wheel. follow someone who you see is successful in life and try to do what they do.
Speaking of that, do you look at other counties? I mean, have you looked?
Absolutely. We steal ideas all over the place.
Okay.
There's some great counties out there. I mean,
which counties do you steal from the most?
We still look to Kent. We still look to Oakland, Fairfax County. I mean, there's counties around the nation, King County in Seattle. I mean, there's a lot of great examples out there.
Great.
People doing innovative things, and we're not below stealing ideas all the time.
Obviously, a lot of the low-hanging fruit's long gone, so it's getting tougher and tougher to identify things. But you are doing some interesting things. I think you joined your county clerk with Registry of Deeds.
Yeah, we did do that. We're, I think, the 32nd or 33rd county in the state to do that.
And how's that working out so far, do you think?
Well, we might get a different answer from the clerk register, but from our perspective, it's working well.
And was there significant savings, or?
Well, we had planned on $125,000 in savings. I think it'll be closer to $100,000. But most of that comes from the massive reductions in healthcare benefit, that we made.
And was there efficiencies in technology? Because I guess in our thing we have two different databases. We have the deeds database, and then we have the elections database. And do they end up having just one mainframe with?
They haven't yet, because they really just started it in January 1st, and so whether they do more things like cross training, co-locating the offices closer. The decision was made 2.5 years ago. But it can only take effect at the next 4-year election.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
How about the? You're also studying the road commission, dissolving that and bringing that under the county commission.
Right. 3 counties have done it, to my understanding: Ingham, Calhoun, and Jackson. We're taking a look at it. The road commission does a great job, but for our citizens and our motoring public, we thought it was a good governance role to at least look at it, since the opportunity's there for 3 years. And we don't really have anybody that has a big yank to take it over as if it's a marble or a power thing. But I think it's more from a good governance standpoint. Can it be done better, faster, cheaper, or is it already done the best it can be done?
Right. Great.
Let me ask you a couple of quick questions that we have here in Muskegon County. You know what generic service credit is?
Yes.
Do you utilize that in Ottawa County?
Well, we're a member of the MERS system, and that is one of the benefits offered through the MERS system. Now, in Ottawa County, employees have to pay 100% of that generic credit. We did have a military purchase system, and the very last one was approved in January. The commissioners phased that out over the last 4 years.
Okay. So
going forward, any employee can purchase a certain amount. I think it's 5 years of generic service, but they do that at 100% employee cost.
Okay. In Muskegon County, because they use a 7.5% compounded annualized return in that computation, the county ends up picking up the balance, which is quite significant.
I want to know how I can buy into that. Is it possible for a private citizen to get into that?
That's a program that Ottawa County got rid of years ago.
I would mortgage my house to get into that.
Muskegon County has, we just got a few minutes here left, guys. Muskegon County has a policy. Now, I can understand that it is Muskegon County, but they have a policy that if any county employees go on county business, that they must fly out of Muskegon County Intergalactic Airport. I'm assuming you have no such policy. What happens when your people travel and need airlines?
Well,
what's
we
the policy?
also analyze air versus travel road, so it isn't guaranteed that somebody can fly. It depends on what's the situation in terms of cost. But no, we take the cheapest flights we can get, without making somebody drive to Chicago to catch a flight. But yeah, if it's Muskegon, great. If it's Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, Lansing,
you do at the county level what the rest of us do with our own personal life. You look at the best. You weigh it yourself and you look at the best. In Muskegon County, we don't. And of course, anyone who's tried to travel lately knows that the flying out of Muskegon County is almost always significantly, sometimes to a power of 2 or 3 more expensive.
What a great way to put it. That was an awesome statement. If I could think of one thing, we absolutely try to mirror what we would do in our personal life as far as, decisions. If I make a wise decision in my personal life, you want to do the same thing for the county and not have a different framework or lens to look through when you do that.
Just because it's not your money. It really is.
Well, that's not only a great statement, but the fact is that you complimented me in the course of that statement. makes it an even better statement. Hey, folks, we're coming to the end of another wonderful show. Thanks so much for both of you, all of you folks, for being here. Remember, I will be at Carmen's this week. We've got a full board meeting on Thursday, I believe it is. We've got another meeting on Tuesday. I'm there from 2 till 3:15. Every time the county commission has a meeting, everyone is welcome to join me. I'll buy you a coffee. Don't forget TV 38, Comcast 397. You can see the video of this show on Monday nights, 8 to 9:30. Keep on your list of Sunday things to do at noon, Renegade River Show with Mike Hewitt. That's a great show. I've subbed on it a few times. It's a very, very good show. Listen up. Oh, don't forget, I'm still on Talking Muskegon Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, 8 to 9 o'clock with John and Brian. And, guys, Mark Molitor, thank you. Ottawa County Administrator Alan Vanderburgh, thank you. Oscar, great to see your smiley face, making frowny faces at me on occasion. And all you wonderful listeners out there, thank you for listening. Spread the word. Next week, we will be back fighting for your dollar, for your future, for your kids' future. Have a great week in our little piece of heaven, folks. Next week, we'll put the eye on you, Muskegon.